Good afternoon, y'all. This is Erik and Derek, Tiger Football Talk. I am one of your hosts, Derek, and we are basically just two Clemson alums who love nothing more than Clemson football and always want to have a little bit more of it. So we're here today to preview the next big game that we have on our schedule. It's Clemson versus Boston College. Erik, take it away.
Yeah, Clemson versus Boston College, noon game on ABC. It's the 30th meeting between Clemson and Boston College. However, Clemson's won 9 in a row, 9 straight, and we won 59-7 last year. So, last video when I said they were close games and they always played us tight, maybe not so much. Boston College is coming in this weekend 4-2. They faced two good teams in Virginia Tech and UNC that had great offensive games, especially on the ground. And we come in at 6-0 with good ground attack, and if they try to stop that, we've got Trevor Lawrence through the air, looking to see our offense rebound this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this matchup is going to feature two great quarterbacks. I think this is the first time since you and I started doing this show that we have a really talented signal caller on the other end now. Boston College, I do want to talk about their quarterback for a few minutes because he's someone that Clemson fans do not know even exists. He hasn't been on SportsCenter top 25 plays. They're not a top 25 team, so we don't know much about him. So let's break him down a little bit. His name is Phil Jerkovic, and he's not another ho-hum Boston College quarterback. He is extraordinary. He really is. He's one of the most decorated high school QBs out of Pennsylvania. Gatorade Player of the Year for Pennsylvania in 2017, and was the number 115 overall prospect of the 2018 class. This is a dude who had offers from everyone, including Clemson, our own, Alabama, Ohio State, Penn State. Basically, look at the top 10 this week. All those guys wanted him to be, on their team playing quarterback. Number 4 dual threat passer in that 2018 class. Number 1 that year was Justin Fields. So he's just a few notches below there. And when he came out, he signed with Notre Dame. He got stuck behind Ian Book a little bit, redshirted, and then played a little bit last year. He actually played last year when he was playing with Notre Dame. He played Boston College. They played against Boston College. But so he was able to transfer this off season, and now he's their signal caller, and he's lighting it up.
Like you said, Phil Jerkovic, Notre Dame transfer, comes in at Boston College QB, second in ACC in completion and touchdowns, 62.5% completion rate, 12 touchdowns. Boston College has some struggle running the ball, but Phil Jerkovic definitely a play caller. Last week, Boston College played Georgia Tech and put a beat down on them, and a big part of that was Phil. Had a ton of yards on the ground. They kind of got away from trying to just run it right up the middle, some draw plays, some jet sweeps. So I think he's going to be a big factor in this game coming up.
Yeah, you mentioned, number 2 in the ACC in passing yards. Number 1, Trevor Lawrence. He's number 6 in the country when it comes to passing yards. Number 5 is Trevor Lawrence. So he is right there from a statistics standpoint, right behind Trevor Lawrence. There's a lot of great, I think, QBs in the ACC, and he's up there with the best of them, really up there with the best of them in the entire country. He's got 2 great weapons. Zay Flowers and Hunter Long are both top 20 in the country in receiving yards. Hunter Long is number 1. He's a tight end, a big guy coming up the middle, but he's athletic, and he leads all tight end receiving yards. So yeah, Zay Flowers on the outside, Hunter Long. They have some ability to throw this football between the talented quarterback and some playmakers. He can feed it to these guys. So Brent Venables, the defense, is going to have a tough task this week, a task they haven't really had in a few games for sure.
Yeah, and I think coming off last week's game where I think Brent was not happy with where his defense played, let up a lot of big runs, obviously that deep shot. He kind of put it on himself to fix this defense. And unfortunately, Skalski looks like he's down for a few weeks. I believe he's undergone surgery, had a scope done on his groin. So he's going to be missing. I know Mike Jones is a little beaten up. Darion
Kendrick. I got you.
Thank you. Flipped them for some reason. He was banged up last game with a knee injury. It looks like he's coming back. Looking at the depth chart, though, I believe we're going to see a different scheme out of defense this weekend. I believe Brent's going to go to a 4-2, 4-3 defense with Mike Jones kind of filling in that outside linebacker, potentially some strong safety. And Spector's going to be huge stopping these jet sweeps and QB runs. So I'm interested to see the 4 down linemen come out, and especially Xavier Thomas coming back last week is going to give the Tigers a big lift on the D-line.
Yeah, absolutely. Last week's, the episode that we were talking about with the Syracuse game is like, listen, let's be honest, we have a lot of injuries across the board. Depth now is going to be more important than it really ever has been. I know Jake Venables came in and played for us last week, but depth, especially at that linebacker position, is going to be a key for this game on the Clemson defensive side.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about depth, and everyone talks about the next man up at Clemson, right? And getting these people touches. You look at next man up at linebacker for Clemson. Let's talk about Keith McGuire, redshirt freshman, 6'2", 230, 4-star, coming out of high school, was ranked as the best player coming out of Pennsylvania that year in that class. Right behind him, Trenton Simpson, true freshman, 6'3", 225, ranked as high as 13th in the nation and the second best linebacker coming out of high school. So we've got depth. I'm excited to see some of these guys play and step into these roles. And I think Brett's going to scheme it up, and they're going to have a good game this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's a dark horse little thing we did right there. That's 2 times we talked about Pennsylvania recruits. So definitely not the route that I thought we were going to go. But again, they're pumping out some good people out there. Trenton Simpson was a great late ad for our class last year. We really targeted Justin Flo the entire year. He ends up committing to Oregon. Trenton Simpson was a huge UNC lean. We were able to go and steal him. Very happy to have him. I mean, 5-star, fantastic athlete. Saw him run around the field last week. So those guys, I mean, the Clemson weight room has obviously been good to them. They are not undersized in the slightest. They are athletes, to say it mildly. So I think they're going to add some versatility to this defense that we'll definitely need. And you can't speak about linebackers without talking about Boston College linebackers. I feel like every year they're pumping them out into the NFL. Yeah,
it's funny that we talk about Phil and their quarterback play at Boston College, because it's been years that we've only talked about Boston College's defense. But Boston College's defense is still up there. I mean, they've got linebackers Isaiah McDuffel and Max Richardson, who lead 1-2 in total tackles this year in the ACC with 59 and 58. So they're going to be flying around on the Boston College defensive side as well. And you talk about Trevor Lawrence earlier in our offense. Like you said, Trevor Lawrence leads the ACC in every major pass category. 70.7% completion rate, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Last week he targeted 12 different players. Amari Rodgers, obviously his lead receiver with 520 yards, leading the ACC. I mean, that's averaging 87 yards per game. So looking to see our offense light it up this weekend.
Yeah, we were talking about in the last episode, like we also need to a stat per minute category, because he's leading the ACC and a lot of the country in all these different categories, and the dude doesn't play into the second half very much. So you always wonder, like, what would it be like to just have him play 100% of the snaps the entire year? It would be gaudy numbers, probably like video game numbers, but that's not the way we roll. That's not the way we're going to do things. We love to have that depth come in here, and if you look at our defense, that's the reason why we have someone go down with injury. We've got someone right in behind them in order to help step up and really fill that gap. So couldn't be more enthusiastic to see some of those guys play this weekend.
Yeah, and on the Boston College side, Jeff Hafley, their coach, talked about the fact that they need to be aggressive. They might go for it on 4th down, some special teams play. It'll be interesting to see what they scheme up to try to match our offensive power. The big thing that they need to fix coming into this weekend is turnovers and penalties. 2 weeks ago against Virginia Tech, 5 turnovers. Last week against Georgia Tech, 10 penalties for 100 yards. You ain't going to win a game against a top-ranked opponent with those kind of mistakes.
Yeah, especially when Clemson is excellent in both those categories. We force a ton of turnovers, don't give the ball too much ourselves, and we're a very disciplined team that doesn't commit a lot of penalties. Our mistakes and our miscues that every Clemson fan, I think, is aware of, especially this year, is special teams. We've had some miscues from blocked punts to blocked field goals over the last few weeks, and every time we feel like we have it situated and figure out, it pops its ugly head to rear itself again. So, it's going to be interesting to see how it does come into play. is Boston College able to get a short field, able to get some momentum early on? And once they have that momentum, then do they shoot themselves in the foot? Do they have that costly penalty, or do we have a fumble and they give it right back to us? I think the first quarter is going to be really important in this game as far as momentum goes, because again, both these teams, even though Clemson has been playing fantastic, we do have some miscues and mistakes on our end that we would need to clean up as well.
Well, and I mean, you talk about momentum, and to me, that's college football in a nutshell. I talked to my coworker who went to Clemson, and that's one of the biggest things I bring up every week in, week out. It's like, oh, how do you think the game's going to go? I'm like, it all comes down to momentum. If there's momentum shifts in college, it can completely change the game. I mean, you look last week at the scoop and score and some interceptions. I mean, those were momentum changers that really changed the momentum in Clemson's favor. But again, going back to our defense, we're second in the country in sacks with 24. I think going to this 4-3, 4-2-1 scheme, I think there might be a number of sacks added to that stat line this weekend.
Yeah, and last week we talked about with Syracuse, we only had 2 sacks against them, and it's not like they have the best offensive line in the world, but they just changed their offense to, hey, they did max load protection, and they did 3-step drops and just shot the ball out, not really reading a lot. This quarterback is it's way more talented. No offense to Rex Culpepper, but this guy's very talented. He's a fantastic athlete. I don't think they're going to handle it the same way. I expect us to see us get back in the line with the sacks. And you're talking about momentum earlier. This what's the name of the coach? Jeff Hafley. Okay. He's seen Trevor Lawrence before. He played him last year. He was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, and had Trevor Lawrence had a tough game against him. He used his legs more than anything in order to overcome some press coverage that Ohio State was doing. So I would not be surprised to see maybe Clemson struggle in the very beginning, because I think they're going to have some things drawn up there.
Yeah, and you go back to the quarterback play. Phil Jerkovic, if he's going to win this game, the last person from Boston College quarterback to beat Clemson was back in 2007. And that man was Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, pro NFL quarterback now for the Atlanta Falcons, 2007. So Phil Jerkovic will join some good company if he can pull it off. And also the year right after that was Dabo's first win as head coach in 2008 against Boston College. So some interesting Boston College facts.
It feels like just yesterday, doesn't it? I feel like we should have pulled up what was the number one song from 2007 and where were we then? It's like we were in high school.
Track.
Yeah. These nice luscious facial hair that we have right now, we had none of that in 2007. So different year, but again, the last time Boston College beat us at Clemson, they had a fantastic quarterback. They have not really had one since then. This is the closest. I'm not going to call this guy the next Matt Ryan. It's not every year. I don't want to call Matt Ryan a Hall of Famer, but he's going to have to play like Matt Ryan. He's going to have to put up some big numbers this weekend. So we'll see if they're going to be able to do that. I want to get into do you think Clemson wins, the spread and all that sort of stuff? Do you have anything else you want to add before we jump into that?
No, let's jump into it.
Okay. And, again, 2 things. I want to keep a look at the records as well, because as Clemson, our offense is always on fire. Trevor Lawrence with a win this week. Not only does it extend it to a 10-game win streak against Boston College, he'll get his 32nd win as a Clemson quarterback, winningest quarterback in the history of Clemson. Passes Deshaun Watson and Taj Boyd for that statistic there. And then Travis Etienne, actually, too. So Travis Etienne, with this week, how many yards does he need?
He's 60 or 70 away. If he doesn't break it this weekend at home, I'll be upset for him, because I'd like for him to break that record at home for sure.
They are taking, I'm pretty sure Frosted Flakes has been banned from the campus. It's been taken out of Bilo, Publix, Ingles. You cannot find Frosted Flakes anymore in Clemson. The reason why, if you're not aware, Travis Etienne had to leave the last game because of cramping. And it's because all he had to eat before the game was Frosted Flakes. I've seen pictures that Clemson puts out of how fantastic the food is that the athletes get to eat. I didn't see that at Harcum when I was there. That's just for the athletes. But this bro only came out and ate Frosted Flakes and had to get an IV at halftime. So I'm pretty sure that that cereal is now banned from Clemson as a whole. He'll come out and have a great game. But again, if he has 60 or 70 rushing yards, whichever it is, he'll become the ACC leader in rushing yards, passing Ted Brown from NC State. So he's already up there with the best. With this record, he will be among the best in ACC history. So now let's get into the questions here. So I want to ask you, does Clemson win the game? And then what you think the final score is going to be. And I'm going to reference that to the spread. So it's a 32-point spread. So Vegas expects us to win by 32 points. And the over-under is 61 points. So therefore, they expect our combined score, Boston College and Clemson combined, to be 61 points. So first question, do you think Clemson wins the game?
I do. I do think Clemson wins the game. I do feel like this is going to be somewhat of a bounce back game. I think the coaches drilled them hard this week to not make some of those mistakes that they've been making in the past games. I think it's a prep game for Notre Dame next week, marquee matchup. I've got Clemson winning 47-10. And I truly believe that Brent Venables is going to scheme up this defense. I think we're going to continue to lead the nation in sacks. I think we're going to continue to get the takeaways. And I think our first string offense and potentially defense for that matter are out by halftime.
Gotcha. Okay, so 48
So I'm
10.
taking they make the spread and they are under 61.
Okay, so I get where you're coming from. I do. I'm going to go the complete opposite route. We spent so much of this talking about the quarterbacks. They're not only 1 and 2 in ACC passing yards, they're number 5 and 6 in the entire country. So I'm going to go 47-21, somewhere right around that age. So I'm going to say that they don't cover the spread. Now, Phil Jerkovic, or was it? Yep. Jerkovic. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing that name correctly. This is the one thing that gets me. The last time we played a fantastic quarterback in Erik King, I believed, similar to how Louisville used Lamar Jackson, that he was going to give us a problem. An outstanding quarterback and just will your team. We saw it with Deshaun Watson. That's not always the case against Brent Venables. Miami got absolutely crushed. So Phil does not exactly have great talent around him. I know we said Zay Flowers. I know we said he has a fantastic tight end. So I could be completely off base here, but my belief is I think he's a great quarterback. I think he'll figure out a way to make plays. I think we win the game handily, but I don't think we cover the spread, and therefore I also think we're going to go over. I think that 61 is a gimme. I think we'll be way above that by the end of the game.
I mean, you were high on Miami too. Just going to put it out there.
I'm also a Florida boy, so I was biased. I have no connections to Pennsylvania. The third time we get to mention Pennsylvania, or Boston as a whole. But we'll see. It could be a bounce back game for Clemson. It could be a prove your worth game for Boston College. But it's going to be. I think it'll be an interesting game watching both these quarterbacks duel out this week. Any last words you have over there?
I'm excited to see the game. I don't know if many of you know this, but this game features the O'Rourke McFadden Trophy. It's honoring Boston College's Charlie O'Rourke and Clemson's Bank McFadden, who started when the teams faced each other back in the 1940 Cotton Bowl. So looking to add some more hardware to our trophy case this weekend.
There we go. I think McFadden, his name is in the stadium somewhere in Clemson too. I remember seeing up on the rafters. So,
yes.
All right, guys. Again, the game, 12 o'clock, I think for the third week in a row, 12 o'clock. Bring your Frosted Flakes, have your breakfast right beforehand. Be on ABC. Before you leave, smash the subscribe and like button. That will really help us out as a whole. Smash it away. And then we'll see you guys on Sunday for the review where I prove Erik that he is completely wrong and that obviously the game went just the way I expected it to be. Y'all have a great night, all right?
Go Tigers.